11 enemy fighters encircled a single American plane at 20,000 feet. The pilot pushed the throttle forward and began to climb. Radio chatter crackled across German frequencies, confusion, then alarm, then something close to disbelief. One by one, the Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs fell back, wings shuddering, engines starving. The lone Republic P-47 Thunderbolt climbed higher and higher. Still, they could not follow. Spring of 1944. Western Europe quivered under the weight of the impending invasion. Allied bombers pounded German industry relentlessly, and the 8th Air Force paid dearly for every mile. Fighter pilots ventured deep into hostile skies, guarding the heavy bombers through flak and fury. Escort missions were brutal calculations. Fuel drained fast. Altitude cost energy. Every choice was a gamble measured in seconds and oxygen. The P-47 Thunderbolt entered this chaos as a paradox. It was massive, 7 tons fully loaded, heavier than any single-engine fighter America had ever built. Its fuselage was wide and blunt, wrapped around a Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp radial engine that produced 2,000 horsepower on a good day. The cowling alone outweighed some enemy fighter armament. Pilots called it the Jug, short for juggernaut. Some said it fondly, others, less so. Early combat reports gave the P-47 a reputation for toughness but mediocre agility. It dove like a meteor. It absorbed punishment that would shred lighter airframes. But in a turning fight at low altitude, it struggled. Luftwaffe pilots quickly learned this, baiting Thunderbolt pilots into slow climbing turns where the P-47 bled speed and became vulnerable. American squadrons lost aircraft this way. Doctrine adapted. Pilots were instructed to avoid prolonged dogfights, use speed, use the dive, do not let the enemy dictate the fight. Yet high above the continent, in the thin, frigid air where bombers, crews, and fighters intersected, the P-47 revealed something else, something its designers understood but few pilots had yet exploited. At altitude, the Thunderbolt did not behave like other fighters. Its turbo supercharger, a complex exhaust-driven compressor feeding the engine, maintained power where others gasped. Above 25,000 feet, the playing field shifted, the rules bent. Most American pilots did not yet know this. They flew the Jug like Mustangs or Warhawks, low and fast, trading energy in horizontal maneuvers. The aircraft's true advantage waited, unrecognized, in the thin stratosphere where few dared to test it. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. His name does not dominate history books. No ACE rankings place him at the top, but in spring 1944, he is a fighter pilot with the 56th Fighter Group, one of the 8th Air Force's most experienced P-47 units, stationed at Boxted, England. He had flown dozens of missions over France and Germany. He knew the aircraft, its weight, its stubbornness, its ability to absorb punishment and bring him home. Before the war, he was not a natural aviator. He grew up far from coasts and airfields in a place where machinery meant tractors and grain trucks, not fighters. Aviation was something read about in newspapers or glimpsed in newsreels. Flight training was a hurdle overcome through persistence rather than instinct. He washed out once, reapplied, and passed the second time. Instructors noted his discipline and methodical approach to instruments and navigation. He was not flashy. He did not chase glory or mock dogfights. He learned procedures. He memorized limits. He respected the machine. That respect deepened once he reached England. The P-47 was not a plane you wrestled into submission. It responded to smoothness, anticipation, and understanding its nature. He learned to manage the turbo, adjusting the wastegate to maintain manifold pressure as altitude changed. He monitored engine temperature gauges, knowing exactly how long he could push the Jug in combat power before risking a seized piston or runaway detonation. He trimmed the aircraft carefully because fighting the controls at high speed burned energy faster than enemy fire. Other pilots complained they wanted the new P-51 Mustangs, sleek and nimble, with the range to escort bombers all the way to Berlin. The Thunderbolt felt like flying a bank vault by comparison. Yet during high-altitude bomber escorts, when German fighters bounced from above, he noticed something. The P-47 did not falter in the climb if handled correctly. If you maintained speed, nursed the turbo, and resisted the urge to yank the stick, it held altitude far better than expected. He began experimenting, not recklessly, just small tests during non-critical moments. He noted how much speed could convert into altitude without stalling. He monitored the manifold pressure gauge as he climbed past 28,000 feet, watching the turbo compensate. He realized the performance charts in the manual were conservative. The P-47 could climb higher than most pilots attempted, and at extreme altitude, it retained power while enemy fighters lost theirs. Nobody asks him to test this. No engineering officer requests data. He does it because curiosity and survival intersect. Because one day, the insight might save his life. Bomber streams over Germany face relentless interception during the spring. Luftwaffe fighter groups coordinate attacks from multiple altitudes, probing for gaps in the escort screen. American pilots learned to recognize the patterns. High flights of Bf-109s position themselves in the sun, waiting to dive. Lower groups of FW-190s strike bombers directly, slashing through formations with cannon fire before climbing away. The goal is always separation: pull escorts out of position, isolate a box of bombers, and destroy it before help arrives. For the P-47 groups, the challenge is geometric. They must remain close enough to the bombers to deter attacks, yet high and fast enough to intercept diving threats. Fuel is always the constraint. The Jug carries internal tanks and often a belly-drop tank, but combat burns fuel at alarming rates. Full throttle, high boost, and maneuvering all drain the gauges faster than pilots would like. Running out of fuel over enemy territory is not theoretical. It happens. Men bail out over forests and fields, hoping for partisans instead of soldiers. Altitude amplifies every challenge. Above 25,000 feet, the cold is brutal. Cockpit heaters struggle. Frost creeps along the canopy edges. Oxygen flow becomes critical. Hypoxia can creep in unnoticed, dulling reflexes and clouding judgment. Pilots learn to watch each other, noting sluggish responses or drifting flight paths that indicate oxygen deprivation. The enemy understands altitude, too. German fighters often stage above the escorts, forcing American pilots to climb and burn energy before the fight even begins. If a P-47 attempts to pursue a climbing Bf-109 at 28,000 feet, the Messerschmitt's lighter weight and streamlined design give it an advantage. Conventional wisdom is clear: do not get drawn into a vertical fight unless you have overwhelming speed to convert. Do not let them pull you into the thin air where engines choke and wings lose lift. But conventional wisdom is based on incomplete data. Most pilots avoid sustained climbs at extreme altitude because it feels wrong. Controls become mushy. The airspeed indicator creeps lower. The instinct is to push the nose down, regain speed, and stay in the envelope where the aircraft feels responsive. Few pilots push past that instinct. Few have reason to. The fight happens near the bombers, and the bombers cannot fly much above 25,000 feet without risking crew and equipment failures. So the escorts remain near that band, trading altitude for speed, using the vertical sparingly. What no one has proven in combat is whether the P-47 can climb away from danger at altitude, not dive, not run, but climb straight up beyond the reach of pursuers. The turbo supercharger hints it might be possible. The engineering charts suggest it, but charts and combat are different languages. The mission briefing is routine: escort heavy bombers to a target in central Germany. Expected opposition: heavy. Altitude: 24,000 to 26,000 feet. Weather: clear over the continent. The pilots leave the briefing hut, don flight gear, and check throat mics and oxygen hoses. The Thunderbolts wait in revetments, propellers ticking in the morning chill. He climbs into the cockpit, settles into the seat, and begins the familiar sequence: fuel selectors, trim tabs, mixture rich, turbo set, canopy locked. Engine start is a symphony of mechanical violence. The big radial coughs, backfires, then roars to life, belching blue smoke. The whole aircraft shudders. He runs through magneto checks, watches the tachometer, feels the engine settle into rhythm. Takeoff is tense. 7 tons of fighter and fuel rolling down a narrow runway, hoping the engine holds and the gear stays locked. The tail lifts, the rumble smooths, and the Jug claws into the air, gear retracting with a hydraulic thunk. He joins the formation, sliding into position, and they turn east toward the channel. The flight across water is uneventful. The formation climbs steadily, reaching altitude as they cross into occupied France. The sky is vast and empty, a pale dome stretching to horizons stitched with contrails. The bombers appear ahead, a dark constellation of B-17s holding tight formation. Flak bursts bloom in black puffs far below. No fighters yet. Then the radio crackles. Bandits high, 9 o'clock. The formation tightens. Eyes strain against the glare. He spots them, small dark shapes stepping down from the sun and Messerschmitts, at least a dozen, positioning for a diving pass on the bombers. The P-47 flight leader calls the bounce. The Thunderbolts bank hard, climbing to intercept. Throttles forward. Manifold pressure climbs. The Jugs accelerate, not gracefully, but with blunt inevitability. The German fighters see them coming and split. Some continue toward the bombers, others turn to engage. He picks a target, a lone Bf-109 curving toward him. He fires a burst. Tracers arc out. Misses. The Messerschmitt rolls and dives away. He follows, nose down, speed building. The altimeter unwinds. 22,000. 20,000, the 109 pulls up sharply, trying to reverse. He anticipates it, leads, fires again, strikes. Smoke trails from the enemy's cowling. The Messerschmitt rolls inverted and falls away. He pulls out of the dive, breathing hard, scanning. Airspeed high, altitude low 18,000 feet. The bombers are above. He begins to climb back toward the formation when the radio erupts. More bandits coming from the north, a whole new group. A swarm Bf-109s and FW-190s diving on scattered P-47s. The fight degenerates into chaos. Individual dogfights spin across the sky. He tries to rejoin his flight but cannot find them. Alone, 3 enemy fighters spot him and turn. Then more join, 5, 7. He counts 11 aircraft converging. His stomach tightens. No help is coming. The first attacker opens fire. Cannon rounds snap past his canopy. He brakes hard left, then right, then pulls into a climbing turn. 2 more fighters cut across his nose. Tracers light the air. He kicks rudder, skids sideways, dives again to build speed, but the enemy holds. They coordinate, boxing him in, waiting for him to air or run out of options. Seconds to decide. Airspeed, 320 miles per hour. Altitude, 19,000 feet. Fuel, enough for maybe 30 minutes of hard maneuvering. 11 enemies in loose formation, closing. He cannot dive, they will follow and catch him where lighter airframes give them an edge. He cannot turn, they have numbers. He needs a move they do not expect. Gauges checked, manifold pressure, turbo, oil temperature all green. Engine strong. He has altitude below him. More importantly, altitude above him, 20,000 feet of breathable sky. He makes the choice. Nose up. A firm, steady pull converting speed into climb. The Thunderbolt responds. 20-30 degrees. Airspeed bleeds, but the altimeter climbs. 20,000. 21,000. Throttle full forward. Engine roars. Turbo spools, forcing compressed air into cylinders. Manifold pressure holds. German fighters follow, expecting him to level, roll, or do anything but climb. He does not. Nose stays high. Climb continues. 23,000. 24,000 enemy pilots react. Some try to follow, others curve to position for a high-side attack. Confident, they think the American will stall. They are wrong. The Thunderbolt does not stall. Airspeed 160 miles per hour, near stall, yet wings hold. Controls mushy but responsive. He adjusts trim, keeps the ball centered, manages throttle and mixture with tiny inputs. Engine steady. Turbo compensating. 26,000. 27,000, one pursuing Messerschmitt shakes, engine gasping. The Bf-109's mechanically driven supercharger cannot match the P-47 turbo. Aircraft shudders, nose down to regain speed. Another follows, then another. One by one, German fighters fall away. Engines cannot sustain power. Wings cannot lift in thin air. Physics wins. The Thunderbolt keeps climbing. 29,000. 30,000 feet. Cold penetrates bones. Frost lines the canopy interior. Breathing is conscious work through the oxygen mask. He monitors engine gauges like scripture. Cylinder head temperature rising but safe, oil pressure steady, manifold pressure holding at 48 inches. Turbo screaming but holding. 32,000. 33,000 feet. Glancing back and down, enemy fighters are scattered below black dots against pale earth. None climbing. Some circle, watching, others turn away, heading back. They cannot reach him. The lone Thunderbolt has surpassed their ceiling. German radio chatter later captured by Allied intelligence reflects frustration. He's climbing away. We can't match him. Reports estimate the aircraft at 10,000 meters. They break off. Disbelief, not anger, dominates. He holds climb until 35,000 feet, then levels off. Air thin. Horizon curves slightly. Sky above a deep violet blue. Below, the war rages. Bombers drone toward targets. Fighters swirl in distant engagements. Flak bursts bloom. Alone, the Thunderbolt floats, broken only by the radial engine's steady roar. One moment of pause. Then a slow descent, angling back toward the bomber stream, toward the fight. P-47 picks up speed. Controls firm. Cockpit warms. By 24,000 feet, aircraft feels normal again, solid, reliable, unshaken. Radioing position, he rejoins escort. No one witnesses the climb. No gun camera footage. Only the enemy saw it. Their reports taking weeks to reach intelligence, but he knows, and the Jug knows. Together, they redefined possibility. After the mission, a standard after-action report, engaged multiple enemy aircraft, evaded through high-altitude climb, returned undamaged. Intelligence officer raises an eyebrow at reported altitude, but does not question it. P-47s are known to handle high flight, perhaps this one pushed it further than most. Other pilots here. Over drinks, someone asks how he evaded 11 fighters. He explains. Skepticism at first. 35,000 feet in a jug, climbing, not diving, under combat power, it sounds impossible. But numbers confirm it. Fuel burn matches, engine gauges stayed green, airframe intact, pilot returned. A few pilots test it themselves on subsequent missions, not as escape, just curiosity. They push Thunderbolts higher, testing limits. Above 30,000 feet, P-47 retains power, turbo compensates. Engine runs smoothly. Captured Luftwaffe pilot interrogations confirm Allied pilots' observations. German fighters struggle above 29 to 30,000 feet. Climb rates drop to near zero. Tactical implications ripple. Fighter groups experiment with high-altitude patrols, positioning 2 to 3,000 feet above bombers as high cover, diving on attackers or climbing away from traps. P-47's ability to operate in this band gives it a unique role. Mustangs have range, but the Jug has the high ground. Engineering officers take note. Republic Aviation receives field reports praising turbo performance under combat. Data confirms designers' suspicions. Pushed hard, P-47 can dominate vertical fights at altitude. Future variants incorporate refinements, improved engine cooling, enhanced turbo reliability. Aircraft evolves not in a lab, but in European skies, informed by pilots testing its edges. By summer, the tactic is routine. P-47 pilots climb above 30,000 feet when threatened, using vertical as escape or reset, forcing pursuers to break off or risk themselves. Work's not always fuel, weight, engine condition matter, but often enough to save lives. Luftwaffe adjusts, avoiding prolonged climbs against Thunderbolts, forcing fights lower. Dance continues, each side adapting, balance shifted. P-47, once dismissed as heavy and slow, becomes the fighter you do not chase into the sky, not if you want to return. After the war, the story became a footnote in fighter tactics manuals. The P-47 record speaks for itself. 15,000 built, dozens of squadrons, thousands of aerial victories, countless ground attacks across multiple theaters, bringing pilots home through flak and fire. That specific moment, 1 pilot, 11 enemies, a climb to the thin blue edge of the atmosphere, does not make headlines. No medal, no ACE status for survival. Unit records, mission logs, and bureaucratic after-action reports capture it. He flies more missions, survives, and eventually returns home. The lesson outlives the man. Altitude is potential energy, a reservoir of options. Aircraft reaching higher and staying there holds a card the enemy cannot match. The P-47 proves it, through brute, reliable turbo power. Modern fighter pilots study vertical energy management as fundamental doctrine, specific excess power, thrust-to-weight ratios, sustained climb rates. Physics remain unchanged, aircraft are unrecognizable. The lesson traces through jets and rockets, rooted in moments like this. 1 pilot, a 7-ton fighter, alone, choosing to climb when every instinct screamed dive. The Thunderbolt fades from the front line after the war. Jets make pistons obsolete. The last P-47s retire in the 1950s, sold or scrapped. Some survive in museums, polished and silent. Visitors read about speed, armament, range, rarely about the turbo. Pilots remember. They speak with near affection, not pretty, not nimble, but honest. When needed most, gauges spinning, enemy closing, sky running out, it provides one more option, one more way out, one more chance to return. He told the story only a few times. Once to a journalist in the 1970s, once to a historian compiling 8th Air Force oral histories. He did not embellish, did not claim to have changed the war. He described what happened, the fear, the decision, the climb, the silence at 35,000 feet. Then, with a faint smile, he said what stayed with listeners: you learn to trust the machine, not blindly, not foolishly, but completely. If you listen, if you really pay attention, the machine will tell you what it can do. That day, the Thunderbolt told me it could climb, so I let it.